What up, world? Welcome back to another episode of Breaking Command, a DND football podcast. As always, you got your man Darian D.H. Williams, aka DH on the mic on X. And you got my partner in crime, my brother from another, Darren Midget, aka D Mitty. D Mitty, what's up, bro?
Man, feeling good, feeling great as usual, man. How you been doing, King?
Hey, man, I'm good, man. A lot of Commanders news to get to. A lot of things that we said what happened did happen. The movers and shakers are moving and shaking, and we're getting closer to week one. So I'm excited, man. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm good, man. I'm just happy to be back in the mix, man.
Man, trust me, you know I'm always happy to do this thing we do, man. When it comes to chopping it up about the team that we've been following for almost all our lives, and it's good that this saga of this Brandon Ayuk free agency thing is over, so that we can have something to talk about, And I just feel like with the Noah Brown signing, I mean, hey, we getting guys. We gonna get guys to help us win, man.
Absolutely. One receiver has been locked down. Brandon Ayuk is officially a 49er for the next 5 seasons, so we don't have to talk about that anymore. We did sign a receiver, Noah Brown, which we'll get to in a little bit. But before we do all that, we want to remind you guys that if you're here, you're a friend and a family member of the show, and we appreciate that. So if you'd like to, you can, of course, subscribe. But I want you to like, subscribe, share with a friend. And if you feel so inclined to leave us a 5-star review, you can get your 5 seconds of fame. That's it. That's all. And of course, on X, you can follow us at Breaking Command Pod. Just take out the vowels in breaking, and you'll find us. But follow us on X, Breaking Command Pod, where we have latest information on what's going on with all things Commanders, and of course, this program here. And you are watching on YouTube, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, youtube.com/Breaking Command Pod. Yeah. So now that that's all out the way. Oh, and by the way, Dimitri, I have to tell you, I know people are leaving comments and doing things on the YouTube page, so we appreciate that. I am going to do a special episode dedicated to all the people that have been leaving comments, subscribing, and liking the page. Dimitri, we are almost to 100 subscribers on the YouTube page, man.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. I wanted to, run that across you, but you a hardworking man. You running this thing, and you got your family going on, man. I didn't want to put too much more on your plate, man. But I knew we was going to do that sooner or later because I appreciate every single one of them, man. You are family to us.
Absolutely, man. So we're gonna don't worry, guys. We're gonna show you some love. We're gonna show you those 5 seconds of fame that we've been saying that we're gonna show you. So trust me, that's on the way. And close to 100 subscribers, man. Listen, I'll say this, man. People got 1,000, 100,000,
Million.
50,000, bruh. They got tons of subscribers. I'm very happy to have the 100 subscribers, close to 100 subscribers that
Thankful.
check
Thankful.
in and watch the episodes, that comment, that share the post. So, man, we appreciate you guys greatly, and we just hope to continue to keep the channel growing. Shout out to all the recent guests that we've had: Rio Robinson,
Yeah.
Felix Trammell.
Yeah.
I mean, we just moving right now. Linnell Willingham, who's been on recently. We got some more guests down the pipeline. Listen, I've been working. So next week should be fun as we prepare for week one with new guests, some new insight and input as we go forward. D Mitty, you think they ready for that?
Oh man, I know they're ready for that, man, because they can't get enough of us, and I know they can't wait till we bring on the guests that we've both been waiting to bring on. So absolutely.
Absolutely, man. Some other media members, some alumni. Ooh, you better be ready for that. I'm telling you. We don't spare.
We
And we
cooking, man.
we 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 don't spare no punches. That's not the expression I want to use, but you know what I'm saying. We don't
Oh
pull
yeah.
back. We don't, we gonna get it popping. Make sure we have people in the mix. So the reason we're doing this episode is the initial 53 is out. Roster cuts have recently been made 2 days ago, and the Commanders have made their moves. We have the initial 53 in the mix. D Mitty, let's start with some of the surprise cuts that were made this past week. Was there any surprises of people who were cut? Not the surprise members who stayed on the team, but some surprises of people who were cut.
The biggest one to me was KJ Henry, and it wasn't the sack in the first quarter against the Patriots in the last preseason game. It was the motor that he showed me in the Patriots game we played against them last year, and when he showed flashes in other games where he can come off the edge Yeah, he needed some more moves, but KJ Henry is one. Ridgeway was a surprise, not a big surprise, but the way he played, once again, having that motor, playing well in the run game, you would have expected that that would have been the guy that had been a part of that arsenal of front, for D line. So those were the two that stood out to me.
No, absolutely, man. I agree with you. The KJ Henry thing, I thought he would stick around on the roster. Being able to move on from Ridgeway, who had some flashes of great ability here. I feel like they were crowded at the defensive line position. So the fact that Adam Peters was able to get something for him instead of just releasing him, I appreciate that. Still trying to stockpile draft picks for next year's draft and beyond. Um, let's see some other notable cuts. Castro Fields was released. I mean, I didn't feel either way. I mean, they're keeping a lot of safeties. They're keeping a lot of defensive backfield. So I
Yeah,
thought he would make it. But I think the big story is, man, almost all the Ron Rivera draft picks are out the door.
man.
With Ricky Stromberg being released, and it's Andre Jones
Chris
being released,
Rodriguez.
Chris Rodriguez, like, bro, like Ron Rivera, and look, and I'm not one to pile on, right?
No
Um,
knocking him. No knocking him.
but the massive overhaul of Ron Rivera draft picks is astonishing. I mean, it's just like, were these guys that bad, like that they just couldn't make the roster? And some of these guys didn't get signed again by
I'll put it
anybody.
like I'll
Yeah,
put
but
it like
go
this,
ahead.
big bro. It's a knock on his talent evaluation on the team he was trying to put together. Now, don't get me wrong; those guys are NFL players. I'm not the one to knock any NFL player that makes a practice squad or is a starter. But when it comes to what he put together, it wasn't cohesive with when you're trying to put together a team to win. And Adam Peters came in to show you that those guys just didn't fit the mold of a winning culture. They may do well in other places. They may, you know, yeah, they may be practice squad guys, maybe so. But there are some guys that may need a different situation to be able to shine.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess as fans, we don't get this insight, but who knew that it would be this much work to kind of overhaul the roster? We thought in the offseason by them bringing in and turning over most of the roster that it was done there, but to really add additional guys through free
Hmm.
agency for this
Hmm.
offseason and then really move on from a lot of those guys from previous seasons, man. It's just kind of show you, man, like, it was a big project
Very
that
talented, very
that
much
Peters
so.
had to do by moving on from these guys. I mean, just some other noticeables. Now, granted, some of these guys have been brought back
Yeah,
from to the practice squad, but
right.
guys like Cole Turner, who we said
Yeah,
needed to have a big preseason to kind of make the
yeah,
roster.
yeah.
He didn't make the roster. Kosa Yankoff did. Somebody they drafted this year, or they signed this year rather. Kaz Allen got cut. Ricky Stromberg, like we mentioned. Mitchell Tinsley got
Yep.
cut. Martavius Bryant, who was, I don't think nobody expected him to really, I mean, people wanted him to make the roster, but
I was on the one side, but I had a feeling he wasn't gonna make it. I was on that one side because I felt like, get a guy a second chance. He has a talent. He went through he put his body through the conditioning as far as I seen he went through a fasting diet with just fruits and stuff to lose weight to be out there. So I was like, get a guy. But you know what? Hey, if you don't fit the mold, you don't fit the mold.
yeah. And I mean, it was just a lot of moves that they made to get rid of those guys. And of those guys that were released, 12 were signed to the practice squad. Running back Casimir Allen, Chigozi Anuzium, uh,
Yeah, something
yeah,
like
ooh, that's
that.
tough for me. The cornerback, guard Julian Good Jones, Sam Hartman, who was initially cut and brought back to the practice squad. Andre Jones was brought back to the practice squad. Haggai, Indebusi. That's a
The
funny.
D lineman in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
boozy something like
yeah.
that.
Indebusie, is that what it is?
Something
I
like
say,
that.
I
I
say,
could be wrong.
I say Indebusie. That's funny. That's very funny. Chris Rodriguez was brought back. Mitchell Tinsley was brought back. Bryson Tremaine was brought back. Cole Turner was brought back. Carlos Watkins and running back Michael Wiley, who I think Michael Wiley will be playing at some point this season.
Yeah.
for the Commanders. So I feel like they have a good practice squad base building from there.
Hmm.
They also mentioned in the press conference the other day how excited guys were to be back in the building with the opportunity to stay with the Commanders. I think that goes along to what they were building and what they were trying to build. You got guys that even if it's not on a 53-man roster, they still want to be associated with the team and be in the building. What does that say about the character of guys that Adam Peters and Dan Quinn has brought in?
In my opinion, that speaks volumes to what they're trying to build as far as not just a culture, but going back to the Ron guys, a winning organization, guys who gel. Because Dan Quinn spoke on what you were just saying in his presser today, as far as the type of guys that they're looking for to build a winning culture. Because for them, it's about what I guess how they gel on and off the field too. But they don't they kind of allude to it, but they don't go deep into that when I hear them speak in their pressers because I listened to the Peters and Quinn presser the other day, and those guys have been putting in work, man. And it speaks volumes to also the guys that Ron was bringing in. Like, were they real football guys or were they just like genuine guys? Because it seems like the guys that Peters and Quinn are bringing in are like football guys, like they love football and that's really what they do. Whereas Ron was bringing in like good guys to the core, like good, like you know, character guys, and you can't always win with just character guys.
Yeah, it feels like somebody made the statement that about he was bringing in everybody that had military affiliations.
And it seemed like it to a degree.
I guess that showed they had discipline, but like you said, that discipline may not have the football ability, and it showed, and I guess it showed through the roster building. I mean, by them only sniffing the playoffs once and then having a bad roster last year, winning 4 games. Like we mentioned this a couple episodes ago, something
Right.
had to be done, something had to be turned over. They're not 1 or 2 guys away. They needed to completely revamp the entire roster. So with that, D Mitty, some of the surprise people that made the roster. Now, before you mention that, we want to talk about Owens, that we mentioned on the Rambling Rio episode where we all kind of were high on him, and he ended up making the roster. So maybe, hopefully, we can pick the Powerball numbers this weekend and take this show to a whole nother level.
At a whole
Nother
nother
level.
level. Man, listen,
Absolutely.
I can't wait to see what this guy does in this defense. They're moving Dominique Hampton to linebacker. I heard through the grapevine, and those two guys to me, they do a lot within the box, and I feel like they can help out safeties like a Derek Forrest, who may need to play over the top at certain instances, depending on down and distance in the game or what have you, and if you get a Dominique Hampton who can come in and show up and help, help in the box, and Tyler Owens who can come in and help play in the box and guard those tight ends between the hashes, they can take this defense to a whole nother.
Level.
You feel me?
Absolutely, man. I mean, that was a noticeable guy that made the roster. And remember, there were 2 on the waiver wire, so a lot of people thought that the Commanders would be buyers at this waiver wire, but they
Right.
made a point that
I definitely did.
the Commanders are on the number 2 in the waiver wire until week 2 of the regular season,
That's
so they
nice.
still will have the opportunity to sign some guys that may get cut later, may get released or things like that. So that they will have the opportunity, man. They put F.A. Obata on PUP, um, and for the foreseeable future, and Norrell Pollard is on the injured reserve list, the rookie. So I feel like they're happy with this group they have. They just signed Noah Brown. I'm kind of curious how he'll be in the mix
True.
between
True.
Terry and then behind number 2 receiver De'Ami Brown. I'm curious to see how they will work in the mix. What are your thoughts on Noah Brown?
Looking at the numbers that I've seen him put up and having a big body guy, when you have guys like Terry and Diami who are around 6 feet 6'1", and you need help in the red zone because you don't know how much you're gonna get out of Zach Ertz and the rookies in that tight end room. he can definitely help in the red zone. And just speaking to the coaches in that building in Ashburn, they have to be really confident in their coaching based on the moves that they have made, and looking at it from a young this team. I wouldn't say being really young, but being a virtually young team. So those coaches are really confident, and I feel like they are really, high on the guys that they have, because you don't see a lot of big name stars on this team outside of the guys who have already been here.
Yeah, and the Commanders are going with 7 receivers to start. De'Ami Brown, Noah Brown, Jamison Crowder, Luke McCaffrey, Terry McLaurin, Byron Pringle, and Olamide Zacchaeus.
Olamide.
They're going with 7 receivers, and I think that freed up that space once Ridgeway got traded.
Mhm.
So it looks like, I mean, I feel like, unlike other teams, I think the Commanders are gonna go. Like, I think maybe the only person who may not be in that offensive mix, maybe Jamison Crowder, if he's gonna be primarily special teams. But
Mhm.
I could feasibly see all these guys getting touches and being in an offensive rotation,
Mhm.
and really getting an opportunity. Of course, I think Terry McLaurin will lead the charge like he has been over the past few years, but I can definitely see a lot of these guys coming in spurts and being impact players on the offense there. At tight end, had 4 guys make the tight end. I think we kind of alluded to that
Mhm.
with John Bates, Zach Ertz, Ben Sinnott, and Kosa Yankoff being there. Um, how do you think the tight ends will affect the offense there?
I'm glad we went to that position group, because one guy does stand out to me, and I really wasn't high on him, and I didn't expect for him to make the roster, Kosa Yankoff. But after doing a little bit of a deep dive, the guy's an athlete. He's played 3 positions on offense coming through college, at UCLA and in high school, what have you. And when I seen him run routes, the guy may be he may supplant John Bates at his position because of his football acumen, and I would love to see that, because once again, we don't know what we're going to be getting out of Zach Ertz as far as health or what even production wise. Yeah, he's a veteran. He's one of the top guys in tight end of all time, but you don't know what this season will bring. But having young guys like Yankoff behind him and Ben Sinnott, I feel like this tight end room can be very versatile based on the offense that Cliff Kingsbury is like to run. I feel like this offense is going to be really versatile.
And that's key when you have a young quarterback. You want to have enough guys in the room that can be like a security blanket.
Hmm.
You look well, you want as many red zone targets as you can have. All those guys are 6'4" and taller. So you look at that, and then you want to be able to attack the middle of the field. While people complain that the Commanders don't have a big receiver, they're going to use their tight ends as those big receivers to attack the middle of the field and get in space and kind of make those plays. You look at with Zach Ertz, who's been a career pass catcher. He'll be able to be used across the field. Ben Sinnott, who I think will be a big factor this year, and then I think they really like Yankoff to kind of make an impact. So I think they'll be good on the offensive side of the ball, being able to find space and get those guys in space. It's really gonna come down to how the offensive line performs, man. We can't have that offensive line that we had last year. I don't think they will trot out those guys or those have that type of play. I think we will be a little more solidified on the offensive side of the ball. But the offensive line is a question. I mean, you saw many times Sam Howell got sacked last year. Of course, it's a new regime, new coaching staff, but we can only go off what we can go by. And even in the preseason, there was some times where the protection wasn't where it needed to be. Jeff Driscoll would have to pull the ball down and run early. So I'm curious, man, this offensive line, how they will perform this year. I'm looking forward to it. But offense, I think we'll be okay, man. I think it'll just be I think Jayden Daniels will have a lot of options on offense.
Hmm.
And then I also think that Eckler will get a lot of touches out of the backfield and be that additional security blanket as well
Hmm.
for Jayden Daniels. Overall, with the offensive roster, everybody that made it for the initial 53, how do you feel the offense will fare this year, man?
I am worried about the offensive line, and it doesn't seem like they made any big moves towards their offensive line outside of Biotic. because I wouldn't say that's a big move, but that was a move that was needed because we knew Nick Gates wasn't going to, anchor that middle of the offense, and they weren't obviously high on Stromberg at center. So bringing in Biotis and Allegretti and the other guy slips my name right now. I mean, slips my mind right now. His name, but I don't. I want to see them make a move to help bolster that offensive line. If not, somebody step up in that room.
I think
But
after that Tampa game, man, they'll really see. Depending
yeah,
upon how they perform that Tampa game, you may see what they're gonna do going forward with that.
and that's a good measuring stick because they are they're knocking on the door being like a playoff team, even though they don't have big names, but that team plays hard. So you're absolutely right. So I hope that this offense does get somewhere around the top 20, out not in the top 30s. Hopefully, somewhere maybe between 18 and 13 offensive ranking, and hopefully Jaden Daniels can put up some good numbers and fight for that offensive rookie of the year.
No, absolutely, man. And the league has already um, recognized his abilities, man. They call him a possible superstar, and it's excited to see how much of a superstar he will be. And D Mitty, with that, man, we're gonna save the defensive side of the ball to the next episode, man. I want to really look at that more in depth, and I believe there could be another move coming here or there. I
You
don't know.
never know.
Adam Peters doesn't. I don't know. I don't know his personality yet, but something feels like he's never finished with building his roster. I think he's always working on something. So at least we know it's not gonna be Ayuk because he's been re-signed. But I feel like he's working on something, man. I mean,
True
that
indeed.
that defensive line, man. I think some changes could be made. I think it's a fluid situation, man.
The way he grinned and snickered after a question I think Sam 48 was that asked him in the presser the other day, yesterday, the way he responded with the grin and a smile, yeah, it was almost like just
Right.
sit tight.
For sure, for sure. And D Mitty, I want to remind everybody that as Commanders news breaks, they can follow us on X at Breaking Command Pod, where we'll share some of that news and be able to discuss it right there. Of course, follow on X at Breaking Command Pod, where you can talk to me and D Mitty about whatever's going on, Commanders. Okay. And of course, if you're still watching this here, you go to youtube.com/Breaking Command Pod and subscribe to the podcast where we have a plethora of guests, a plethora of topics, and of course, you can see our mugs for every episode of the Breaking Command Pod. Dimitri, with that, before we get out of here, man, you got anything on the defensive side of this? Excuse me, on the offensive side of the final 53, man.
I can't wait to see what my guy De'Ami Brown does this year. As you can see, I'm going with a hot take this year. I hope the receptions are higher than 65, but I'm gonna just put it at 65 because I know some of you guys that are watching, y'all still hate my guy De'Ami Brown,
They
and
do.
he's going to crack over 700 yards this year. I know it for certain. So I'm putting my hot take 150 above that at 850 for my guy De'Ami.
I love it, man. You got to see what those odds are on the various draft sites. Go ahead
And you know
and
what?
the DraftKings and FanDuel, put it on there and check it out. See, look, I don't have any hot takes today, but maybe I had some before the season start. We're looking to have 2 more episodes before week 1 with special guests, and I want you guys to look forward to it. But D Mitty, that's it, man. We getting ready to get up out of here. Of course, for my partner in crime, D Mitty, we want to thank you for tuning in for another episode of Breaking Command, a DND football podcast. Of course, make sure you like, subscribe, share with a friend, and be good out there. Be safe. Peace and love from the Breaking Command podcast. Peace.